50 points higher on the Nifty and 150 or 160 higher on the Sensex.
We have the Sensex, which is at a fresh record high. We have the Nifty, which is above 12,000.
The market is looking strong. I mean, we're up about 65 or 66 odd points.
It's green across the screen. At least on the large cap indices, the Sensex did hit a fresh all-time high. Not an out-and-out, big rally day in mid-caps.
Sensex cools off after hitting record highs in early trade. Nifty fails to hold on to 12,000, but is only 100 points away from all-time highs.
The Reliance stock rallies after Jio hints at a tariff hike if government imposes a floor price. This came a day after Airtel and Vodafone announced plans to hike tariffs.
All the Nifty pharma stocks end with gains as the index outperforms benchmarks. Sun Pharma leads the charge after Taro's buyback announcement and after a healthy response to Sun's dry eye drug.
Recoveries from defaulting assets help PSU banks rally for the second straight day. Corporation Bank gains 5%, while UCO sees double-digit gains.
The abatement of telecom NPA worries propel IndusInd Bank and RBL Bank into the green. Bandhan Bank slips 2% after local media reports of protests against microfinance lenders in a few districts in Assam. Well, those were the top 5 headlines from Dalal Street on a day when the Sensex, the grand old index, hit a fresh all-time high. Welcome to Markets Today, the show where we are going to tell you everything that happened in those 6 hours of trading in 5 headlines. I'm Lata Venkatesh, with me my colleague Prashant Nair. Hi, Prashant.
Hi, Lata. Not quite at the day's high today, the market, but still 55 points in gains on the Nifty. Lots to talk about, lots of stuff moved around. We've got lots of opinion for you as well. Morgan Stanley's Rhythm Desai will lay out his top sectoral bets and his outlook on the broader markets. Sanjay Kapoor, ex-Bharti chief, we spoke with him earlier. He, of course, is going to be weighing in on the telecom sector. I mean, how much more, perhaps, in relief should we expect? The Telecom Commission, the former member of the Telecom Commission, S.S. Hirohi, explains to us the impact of the new pricing which telcos are announcing. And we will obviously also hear from A.K. Goyal, Managing Director of UCO Bank, and the MD at Andhra Bank on the recoveries that they expect on some of these stressed assets. So that's basically the lineup for you in terms of the top opinion. Also, of course, with us to talk about the day-to-day action, the here and now, we'll have a technical expert, Mitesh Thakkar, joining in. But before all of that, let's quickly wrap up the day's events. As I said, 50 points, but lots beneath the surface. Lata, why don't we pick it up right from the start?
Well, you're right that 50 points should not be underplayed because it came on a day when most of the global indices are in the red, with President Trump threatening even higher tariffs if there isn't a deal at the end of all these negotiations. So it's important that on a day like this, the Sensex crosses to its to set a fresh all-time high. And even after the profit taking, the indices have ended about 0.5% or 0.4% in the green. That's important. The Indian story is being helped by a group of stocks, and they have been the story for this entire week. First of them, of course, is telecom. Now companies coming around to the view that you shouldn't be undercutting and there should be higher tariffs, and the government almost goading them to do that. Banks, especially public sector banks, because of hope that the IBC, the bankruptcy code resolution process, is working finally, and pharma companies for individual reasons, each one for its own, but pharma quite becoming the flavor of the season. The other triggers also are important. A fall in crude prices. They fell from about $63 and change to $60 and change. That's always helpful for us. And there is this expectation that the government is going to keep on giving you doses of what you can call broadly reform, the latest, of course, being that aggressive divestment will take place. And that also kept some counters afire. But you tell us all the counters that were on fire.
Oh, absolutely. On fire, and there was, the fire was going off in some areas as well. Telecom, for example, massive rally, and now things getting a little too stretched. Probably. We'll get to that in a bit. But the top gainers, media, pharma and energy were the sectors which did the best. Media, of course, led by the big move in Z, pharma by Sun, and energy, mostly RIL. Under pressure were real estate names and public sector bank names. PSU Bank Index was down. It was a top gainer yesterday. The Nifty gains coming through in names like Z, by close 8% higher. Reliance Industries, 6% in the last two trading sessions. L&T was higher. The Pharma Pack, Sun, DRL, Cipla, all three Nifty names did very well. Of course, top of the list was Sun. IndusInd Bank, Yes Bank from the private sector banking space did well. And there was BPCL, which of course continues to buzz because of that divestment hope. Nifty cuts in Bharti Infratel. And remember, by the way, Bharti itself cooled off quite a bit from the day's high. It was down 5%. Infratel has also rallied as it has become sort of certain that it will be a three-player market and not whittled down to two players. So Infratel, which supplies towers, tower sites for telcos, that also had rallied quite a bit. It gave up some of those gains. IOC and Kotak Bank were the other losers. The broader cuts, as I said, coming in, these PSU bank names which had rallied quite a bit. So OBC, Allahabad Bank, Syndicate Bank, all seeing a wave of profit booking. Wockhardt was down, which had again rallied quite a bit. Godfrey and Dr. Lal Path Labs were the other sort of loser. Broader gains, lots of PSU names, Shipping Corporation, Dredging Corp, ITDC, ITI, and I could go on. Dish TV was a big name, was a big mover, 14% odd in terms of gains. Lupin, NCC, Varun Beverages, and a PSU bank name which did not sell off but did well once again was UCO, which actually was higher with large volumes today. So that's basically what was up and down. Nada.
Okay. Well, I know you mentioned this just in passing, but maybe you have to dwell a little more on the fact that Reliance was almost a 10 lakh crore market cap today. Yeah. A huge, big number, but it stopped short of that. I think it went up to 9.95 lakh crore and turned back. It's only a matter of time. 1577. The moment it touches that figure, the market cap will go to 10 lakh crore. So along with the Sensex, that was a talking point in early trades. Well, more about the indices and sectors to invest. We spoke with Rhythm Desai of Morgan Stanley. He believes the SR verdict has put to rest a prolonged uncertainty regarding resolution of stress and the bankruptcy court's effectiveness. He also spoke about some sectors like energy, telecom, private sector banks, all of which he believes are good bets. Basically, Rhythm's thesis was that a recovery is in the offing in the economy in the first quarter of next year, and that's what markets are smelling now. Listen to him.
We prefer the private sector banks where we find that there is adequate capital adequacy and good growth prospects backed by decent valuations and therefore reasonable upside. Very selectively into some NBFCs where business models are robust and balance sheet is not a problem. The SR verdict by the Supreme Court, I think, is a very valid point. It does put rest to the uncertainty that was prevailing, and in fact I think it has long-term implications because it has clarified a lot of things around the NCLT process. My overall comment on public sector companies is that a lot of them bring pretty reasonable moats to the table. They are large in size and have strong market shares, and therefore they probably have better return prospects than what they are currently exhibiting. The energy sector per se looks quite interesting, and we actually like quite a few of the energy companies in the listed space right now. We got a little bit lucky there and we closed out our underweight position a few months ago because we thought that the valuations had turned very attractive. Again, this is very similar in the sense that if the tariff normalization happens, then the upside to cash flow can be quite large. And again, they have to be evaluated by individual assessments because each company has a very different balance sheet position. But overall, I think this is good news for profits in India. We think there's a mean reversion coming because the growth cycle is turning. Domestic cyclicals have underperformed relative to other types of businesses. Again, because of a recovery in the cycle, I think they will probably do well. And mid-caps and small caps, I would use one word for that category of stocks, but that cohort has dramatically underperformed and looks quite inexpensive. So if you can combine a value stock with cyclical element in it, and it is a small or a mid-cap stock, I think that's where the money could be made in the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay, so that's Rhythm's view fundamentally, but chartically speaking, how do things look? Mitesh Thakkar is with us. Mitesh, what did you make of the market action today? I mean, there was some pruning of positions, some profit booking, which you could see across the board. Your thoughts?
I think, there are a couple of observations which are very important on the immediate price chart of the index. One, we've kind of managed to get past the intraday pivot of 11,950. Second, I think, the indicators on the short and intraday basis which were turning flat have started to rise, and therefore I think some kind of trended movement should happen. I would look at, first target of 12,020, in fact, which was met today, and I think once that has been crossed, and that should be, I would look at targets of around 12,100 to begin with, which is the retest of earlier highs, and possibly an extension to about levels of 12,250. For all long positions which are trading with a short-term bias, I would advise trading the stop loss to just below 11,950 or 11,945, as the trader might want to keep a number at.
The second headline now, a day after Airtel and Vodafone Idea announced their tariff hike plans, Jio issued a statement saying it will take similar action in the next few weeks, with a nod to CNBC-TV18's news break that the government is looking at a potential floor price for voice and data. Jio said it plans to revise its tariffs to be in compliance with the expected new rules. My colleague Rima Tedulkar joins with what brokerages have made of all these recent developments. Over to Rima.
Well, when was the last time you had the industry pretty much announcing a coordinated price hike? The quantum of price hikes by all the three private players, Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea, as well as Reliance Jio, is not known right now. But investors have already started building in scenarios. Now Morgan Stanley, for instance, is saying when and if and when can Bharti get back to its historical high ARPU levels. ARPU is average revenue per user, and that historical high level was hit in 2015 prior to Reliance Jio launch. So Morgan Stanley believes that if Bharti Airtel can achieve it in 1 year, then the target price should be 552. If it's a gradual rise to those levels of 200 rupees or historical high levels, then the target price for Bharti Airtel should be about 510. But the stock which has blown everyone's mind away has been Reliance Industries, and the kind of up move we've seen. In a span of 2 months, the stock has rallied nearly about 400 points. A couple of factors have worked in its favor. The prospects for Reliance Jio have improved. One, Reliance Jio started charging for voice calls. That is an indirect price hike of 10 to 15%. Secondly, overnight, they signaled their intent to further look at an appropriate price increase. Thirdly, they restructured the entire business. It now holds all their digital assets, and debt of 1 lakh crore rupees has been transferred out of Reliance Jio, which makes its monetization a lot easier and a lot more valuable. And thirdly, the Supreme Court judgment on AGR dues impacted competition, but not Reliance Industry.
Okay, Rima, thanks very much for that. We also caught up with telecom expert Sanjay Kapoor. He believes that the tariff hike by telcos is not enough for a technology upgradation in the sector. Also a view coming in from Mr. S.S. Sirohi, former member of the Telecom Commission, who said that Airtel and Vodafone should have hiked tariffs much earlier. Listen in to both those opinions we got earlier in the day.
Really look at the sustenance piece, and you look at the investments that are required in this industry to prop up the customer experience on the current technologies, and then start considering the future technologies that the world has already picked up and are migrating to. Then just a mere 25-30% hike is not going to lead us to there. We will be back to the table very soon. I think India needs a very significant hike. $1.50 ARPU does not justify, no matter how large the population is, to have a sustainable business case.
While I welcome that the industry has woken up to the hiking their price for the consumers, I think Airtel and Vodafone should have done it quite earlier. But anyhow, since now this has been thought of, and from 1st December they are raising, naturally the third operator will also raise accordingly, in accordance with that. But what is the quantum